In the streets, loyalty ain't a slogan. It's a price paid in blood. And tonight, that price just went up. For months, the game's been whispering, pointing fingers, connecting shadows. But now, those whispers just turned into a roar. Quando Rondo finally breaks his silence, and the spotlight swings straight toward Lol. Tim, the one name that's been tied to loyalty, danger, and the type of truth that doesn't ever come clean without leaving scars, because this ain't just friendship, ain't just brotherhood. This is survival, and survival always has a cost. New evidence surfaces, new voices step forward, and suddenly, the same streets that crowned them with loyalty are questioning who's standing solid and who's standing scared. The pressure is closing in, and every side is pointing the finger somewhere different. Hidden messages, leaked whispers, old enemies waking up. Everybody wants a piece of the truth, but nobody wants to deal with the fallout. But one thing's clear. When the smoke rises, loyalty gets tested. And tonight, loyalty is looking real shaky, so buckle in, because what you're about to hear isn't a rumor, it isn't gossip, and it ain't the watered-down story the industry pushes to keep everybody calm. This is the raw version. The version they hope never hits daylight. Quando speaks. Tim reacts. And the streets. The streets are ready to explode. The streets don't forget. They don't forgive. And they definitely don't stay quiet not when names like Quando Rondo, Lol, Tim, and the ghosts of the past start drifting back through the alleys. Loyalty, power, reputation. In this world, it's all currency. And lately, the value of loyalty has been dropping fast. Tonight's story starts the same way. Every major shift in the streets starts with silence. Thick, uncomfortable silence. The type of silence that sits on your chest like a warning you can't ignore. For months, Quando Rondo kept his mouth sealed. No interviews, no explanations, no reactions. Just a cold stare at the world like he's daring somebody to step too close. And Lol Tim, the same soldier everyone labeled loyal, fearless, unshakable, he's been right beside him. But even the strongest alliances crack when the weight gets heavy enough. And lately, that weight got really heavy because a new wave of evidence just hit the underground. Screenshots, audio clips, a voice note from someone who shouldn't even be involved. And the streets. The streets are buzzing like a kicked beehive. Everybody's talking, everybody's assuming, and everybody's trying to decide who's slipping and who's still solid. But before we get into that leaked mess, you gotta understand something deeper. Quando and Tim ain't just rappers and homies. They ain't just partners surviving the game. These two share a story soaked in trauma, retaliation, and consequences that could have crushed weaker men. Back in 2020, their names got tied to one of the most explosive incidents hip-hop has seen. Overnight, Quando Rondo became a target. Overnight, Tim became a symbol either of protection or violence, depending on who you ask. And from that day forward, the streets split, some supporting, many doubting, all watching. Every move, every clip, every post, every breath. So when rumors started spreading that Quando was distancing himself, that Tim was making moves on his own, that someone on the inside wasn't telling the truth, the whispers became storms. And storms in the streets mean one thing: somebody's getting exposed. Now, let's break down exactly what happened. A block, but definitely plugged in, dropped a message claiming that Quando Rondo is ready to speak publicly about the real story behind the loyalty. That alone shook fans. Then came the bigger bomb. The blogger said there's proof that Tim wasn't being fully honest about something critical, regarding a night that changed everything. Screenshots followed. Grainy, unclear, but enough to get attention. Then, a mysterious audio clip leaked. Some swear the voice belongs to someone close to the situation. Others say it's fake. But what's in the clip? A heated conversation. Two men arguing about who did what, who froze, who moved, who panicked, who took credit they shouldn't have. It didn't name names, but everybody already guessed. Fan pages exploded. Ops started posting cryptic emojis. Little side accounts pushed narratives like wildfire. People started asking, is Tim really as solid as we think? Did Quando carry him more than we knew? Is this why Quando stayed quiet for months? Rumors aside, here's the truth based on what insiders say. Quando Rondo's silence wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't pressure from the industry. It was a strategy, according to someone close to him. Quando has been planning a major sit-down interview, one where he lays out his entire perspective, clears his name, and addresses the loyalty question head-on. But before he could drop that interview, somebody got impatient and leaked pieces of the story early, and according to those same insiders, Quando ain't happy at all. He feels betrayed, not necessarily by Tim, but by the people around him. Someone in the circle is leaking. Someone is gossiping. Someone is stirring the pot for clout. This isn't the first time something like this happened. But this time, the consequences might be different because for the first time ever, Quando reportedly questioned whether everyone in his camp deserves to be there. Now let's talk about Tim. Tim has always been seen as the one who who stood firm when things got ugly. Loyal, unwavering. The type you want next to you when the streets get real. But since the new evidence leaked, people have been replaying his interviews, rereading his posts, trying to connect dots that might not even exist. And this is where the drama gets crazy. One clip circulating claims Tim was involved in a side conversation that Quando didn't know about. Nothing illegal, but something that hinted Tim might have been downplaying certain details. Whether it's true or not, the internet took it and ran like it was gospel. Narratives formed instantly. Tim is lying, Quando covering for him. They are not as close as they pretend. There's tension, there's fear. Mind union of this is confirmed. But in hip-hop, perception becomes reality, and the longer you stay silent, the louder the rumors get. So what does Quando do? He breaks the silence. Not a full interview, not a press conference, not even a song, just one message. A short, sharp line posted privately, then leaked by someone. Loyalty is being tested every day. Some gone stand, some gone fold. We've gone see who is who real soon. Boom. Just like that, the streets went nuclear. People assumed this was aimed at Tim. Others said it was for the ops. Some said it was for a snake in the circle, but the timing makes things messy. And messy is exactly what the drama world loves. Here's another angle. Nobody's talking. About Quando Rondo has been going through major personal battles, legal pressure, betrayals, losing friends left and right. When life hits you that hard, you start seeing your circle differently. You start asking who's here because they care. And who's here because they need me? Add new evidence, new rumors, and new pressure, and you get the perfect storm. The streets aren't just watching now, they're analyzing. Everything Tim posts, everything Quando says, every movement, every song snippet, every live stream hint, every subliminal bar. Is loyalty really cracking? Or is this just the industry stirring chaos like always? The truth is deeper than most think. Because what's coming next is bigger than whispers, bigger than rumors, bigger than leaks. We dive into the new evidence, the secret witness, the industry pressure, and how Quando's silence was part of a much bigger plan. Loyalty is supposed to be a bridge, something you walk across without thinking twice, but sometimes that same bridge starts shaking under your feet, and you don't know if it's the wind or the person walking behind you. That's exactly where Quando Rondo found himself, as the tension around him and Tim tightened like a rope. The world kept asking, who's standing tall, who's folding, and who's hiding behind silence? The problem is, silence doesn't stay empty for long. When people don't get answers, they start creating their own, and every rumor, every leaked voice note, every supposed eyewitness became its own monster, stalking both Quando and Tim from different directions. Quando could feel it, not in interviews, not on social media, but in the quiet moments when he had to look himself in the mirror and wonder who he could actually trust. There were days Quando replayed those old memories of him and Tim nights in the studio, wild stories on the road, moments where they felt untouchable. Back then, loyalty was something they didn't need to talk about. It was automatic like breathing. But now, it felt like every breath carried weight. Like every move was being watched by 1,000 eyes waiting for a crack to appear, and cracks were starting to show. Not because the loyalty was broken, but because the pressure was so damn heavy. Quando's team kept warning him, telling him to fall back, stay quiet, let the lawyers handle everything. But Quando was tired of silence being used against him. He felt like every second he stayed quiet, somebody else added another lie to his name. He knew the streets weren't patient. They didn't wait for facts. They lived on energy, on emotion, on whatever story passed through the block fastest. On emotion, on whatever story passed through the block fastest. Meanwhile, Tim was fighting a battle of his own. Every time he stepped outside, he could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He didn't ask for fame. He didn't ask to be the center of a national conversation. He didn't ask to become a symbol of loyalty or violence or whatever people wanted to attach to his name. The streets weren't quiet around him either, people whispered. People speculated, and some people, the bold ones, threw dirt directly at him, convinced they knew the truth. But the truth isn't some shiny thing you can hold up for the world to see. It's messy, complicated, and sometimes it hurts more to speak it than to keep it buried. Tim knew that. He also knew that Quando was catching heat because of him. And no matter how many times Quando said, "I got you," Tim could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He could see the burden weighing down on him. A real friend notices things before words even come out. There were nights Tim sat alone, thinking back to the moment everything changed. The adrenaline, the fear, the instinct, all of it replaying like a broken record he couldn't turn off. And then the aftermath. Sirens, news reports, investigators, lawyers, fans turning into critics overnight. The world moved fast, and Tim couldn't keep up. But Quando? He stayed, even when people said he shouldn't. And that's where the confusion started. The same fans who praised their loyalty early on suddenly started twisting it. Some said Tim was the only one who risked everything. Others claimed Quando was distancing himself. Some even suggested there was tension between them. The internet loves drama more than truth, and once the streets feel smoke, they assume there's fire. But the fire wasn't between Quando and Tim. The fire was outside their circle, burning through rumors and lies like gasoline on concrete. Still, the pressure created moments, small moments where doubt tried to sneak in. And that's what Quando hated the most. Not the threats, not the accusations, but the idea that someone, somewhere, thought he wasn't loyal to Tim. The idea that people believed he was leaving him behind because loyalty wasn't a brand to Quando. It wasn't a marketing strategy. It wasn't something he said for clout. It was something he lived, something he bled for, something that cost him relationships, opportunities, peace of mind. Every time he spoke publicly, people twisted his words. Every time he stayed quiet, people filled the silence with assumptions. Somewhere in the middle of all this, Quando realized something deeper. The streets didn't want the truth. The streets wanted entertainment. They wanted conflict. They wanted division. And if they couldn't find a real one, they would create it. That realization cut deeper than any diss, any rumor, any headline. On the other side, Tim wasn't blind. He saw the online talk about Quando switching up, moving different, acting distant. He hated those narratives more than Quando did. He knew the man personally. He knew the sacrifices Quando made that nobody saw. He knew the risks Quando took to stand beside him. Still, every lie spread like wildfire, and even Tim had to admit, if you hear something enough, it starts echoing in your head whether you believe it or not. There were moments where Tim questioned himself, not Quando. He wondered if he was dragging his brother down unintentionally. He wondered if he had become a burden. He wondered if his presence made things harder for Quando. Those doubts didn't come from disloyalty. They came from guilt, from confusion, from the heavy weight of responsibility. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, new so-called witnesses started coming forward. Some real, most fake. Men and women who had never even been near the scene suddenly claimed they saw something people who weren't even in the same state claimed they had inside. Information. The industry thrives on manufactured details, and this situation was no different. The worst part? Some of the rumors started sounding believable not because there was truth, but because the world repeats lies louder and more confidently than facts. Quando and Tim found themselves drowning in noise. Every time they tried to lift their heads, another wave crashed over them. There was a night Quando sat in his car for over an hour, engine running, no destination in mind. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was thinking about loyalty, about fear, about pressure, about expectations, about Tim, about the world. He thought about speaking out, clearing the air once and for all. But even that carried risk. One wrong word could twist everything further. Tim had similar nights full of silence that felt louder than crowds. Nights where he replayed old memories to remind himself who he really was. Nights where he reminded himself that loyalty wasn't measured by Instagram comments but by history, by moments, by sacrifice, and slowly, without either of them announcing it, they both came to the same realization. If the world wanted division, they would stand closer. If the world wanted confusion, they would move with clarity. If the world wanted a break, they would double down on loyalty, because loyalty isn't something you shout, it's something you show. And both of them, through fear, pressure, rumors, danger, kept showing it. Day after day. And that's when the real shift started. Not in the streets, not online, but inside them. There comes a moment in every storm when the noise stops mattering. When the lies get so loud, the threats get so common. The rumors get so messy that you stop trying to fight the waves and instead learn how to move through them. That's exactly where Quando Rondo and Lol Tim found themselves, not defeated, not scared, but sharpened by everything that tried to break them. And it was in that clarity, in that pressure-filled silence, that the real truth began to rise. For weeks, the world waited for cracks. They waited for a slip-up, a misstep, a sign that the loyalty between them was fading. But what people didn't understand was simple. Loyalty doesn't crumble under pressure. It becomes heavier, more real, more dangerous. And both Quando and Tim had been carrying that weight long before the world ever paid attention. Quando finally realized something powerful. The streets weren't judging him for what he did. They were judging him for how he stood afterward. They wanted him to fall apart. They wanted to see him break. They wanted to see division, betrayal, chaos, because drama feeds the culture faster than truth ever could. But instead of breaking, he solidified. Instead of cracking, he locked in. And instead of turning on Tim or distancing himself, he rooted deeper into the loyalty that built their bond in the first place. Meanwhile, Tim had his own transformation. The world had painted him as some silent shadow next to Quando, a character in someone else's story. But Tim wasn't weak. He wasn't confused. He wasn't lost. He was dealing with the reality that every move he made could be twisted into something else. Every step outside felt like he was being watched. Every word he said felt like it could be used against him. But even with all that pressure, Tim didn't fold. He learned how to carry himself differently. Not loudly, not recklessly, but with purpose. There were moments behind closed doors where Tim and Quando sat down together and didn't say a word. Not because they had nothing to talk about, but because everything between them was understood without explanation. That's the kind of bond the world doesn't see. That's the kind of loyalty you can't fake on camera. And while they were rebuilding their focus, the noise outside kept growing. Bloggers pushed new narratives. Fake insiders posted cryptic messages. Old interviews were clipped and twisted. People tried to ignite beef that didn't exist. Some even tried to connect Quando and Tim to drama they weren't even part of. But every lie only made them stronger. Every rumor only made their circle tighter. And every doubt only reminded them why loyalty mattered in the first place. Eventually, Quando stepped forward. Not in a PR move, not in a scripted rollout, but in an honest moment. He didn't defend himself. He didn't attack anyone. He spoke from the heart, raw and unpolished, saying what needed to be said. And while his words weren't loud, they were felt. Because there's a difference between talking and meaning something. Quando meant every word. People expected him to distance himself from Tim. Instead, he doubled down. People expected him to crumble under pressure. Instead, he stood taller. People expected division. Instead, they got unity. It shocked the same world that thought they had the story figured out. Tim saw that too, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he could breathe. He wasn't alone in the chaos. He wasn't forgotten. He wasn't a burden. He was a brother, and brothers don't leave each other when the fire gets close. They walk through it together. Don't leave each other when the fire gets close. They walk through it together. That shift began changing everything. The street narratives started collapsing. The fake witnesses started disappearing. The loud critics quieted down, because when loyalty remains solid, rumors can't destroy it. When two people stand together through the worst, the world eventually has to step back and respect it. But the journey didn't end at all. It turned into something bigger. A reminder of why loyalty matters in a world that thrives on betrayal. A reminder that pressure doesn't create distance unless doubt is already there. A reminder that sometimes the only proof you need is how someone stands beside you when standing beside you isn't easy. The story between Quando and Tim didn't need an ending filled with explosions or dramatic twists. It needed honesty. It needed truth. And that truth was simple. Loyalty held. There were still challenges ahead. Legal battles didn't disappear overnight. Safety concerns didn't magically fade. The streets didn't stop watching. But the difference now was perspective. Quando and Tim weren't reacting to the world anymore. They were moving with intention, with purpose, with a bond that had already survived the worst the world could throw at it. Late one night, Quando drove back to the same spot where everything had once felt heavy and confusing. But this time, the weight wasn't fear. It was strength. Growth, understanding the kind of clarity you only get after walking through fire and coming out, without letting it change your core loyalty. Tim was in his own space doing the same thing, reflecting, processing, grounding himself. And even though they weren't speaking at that moment, they were connected. Their paths had been tested, judged, doubted, twisted, and challenged. But in the end, they were still aligned. The world loves a downfall. They love betrayal. They love conflict. But what they hate and what they never expect is unity that refuses to break. That's what Quando and Tim represented now. Not drama, not fear, not confusion, just quietly unshakable loyalty. And once the noise died down, once the rumors faded, once the streets realized the story wasn't going their way, something strange happened. Respect started growing. People who once doubted began admitting they were wrong. People who once criticized started staying silent. Because the one thing the streets always respect, even before fame, even before money, even before success, is loyalty. That doesn't collapse under pressure. In the end, the story wasn't about violence. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about fear. It was about two men navigating a world that wanted to divide them and refusing to let that world win. It was about understanding the cost of loyalty and choosing to pay it. Anyway, it was about standing tall when standing tall meant standing alone. It was about trust when trust felt dangerous. It was about staying real when the world wanted fake. It was about surviving not just the streets, not just the rumors, but the pressure to become someone they weren't. And that's what made their bond unbreakable. Loyalty didn't just survive. It evolved. It strengthened. It became something the world couldn't twist anymore. And once loyalty becomes unbreakable, the story writes itself. If you've been locked into this story and you want every twist, every leak, every unseen detail from the streets before it hits the blogs, make sure you tap that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Is this loyalty unbreakable, or is another storm coming? Your voice keeps this channel alive. Your support keeps the truth moving. And if you're ready for the next explosion, turn on notifications. Because what's coming next? Yeah, you're not going to want to miss it.